Artificially welcome today we're going to talk about cloud and zero capital expense IT and working to make everything as a service. The intent and the big message that we hope that you all take away from today is not whether or not you choose to make everything a service or not. It's really about employee productivity and some of the things that some of the components that are built into infrastructure as a service, components that are built into applications as a service, and we'll dig into what that means a little later. But really part of that, the reason why that infrastructure is built and how it works and how it creates high availability and high amount of uptime, so that really when you think about IT, we want you to actually not think about it, quite frankly. We want IT to get, and Jordan will talk about, we want to get IT as boring as when you turn on a light switch, that you don't think about whether or not it's going to turn on or work, right? It just will. So, that's what we're going to talk about today. So we've already met Jordan. So our challenge today is really want you to think a little differently about IT and trying to understand kind of the concepts that are really driving infrastructure as a service, why people are moving away from servers that are out of warranty or out for replacement and looking at a hosting model, and understanding why are people doing that, and then trying to apply that thinking to other aspects of your organization, other aspects of the applications you may use, or the other equipment that you have to purchase or utilize in order to do what you do and serve your customers. So today we're going to touch on three main areas. One is infrastructure as a service, talk about cloud services. That's where Jordan is going to be speaking to that. Then I'll step in and we're going to talk about applications as a service, primarily using Office 365 as an illustration of applications as a service. And the last piece is really saying, all right, well, now that if you've got your infrastructure as a service and if you have some of your applications as a service, what about everything else that you have to buy and do and use in order to get things done? So and that's really what we're going to be talking about today is how we can try and make all of that work well for you so that it's an employee production enabling. That's why you buy technology, is because it should enable your team to be productive, and a different way to potentially consider purchasing and adopting technology. So with that said, Jordan, please take it away.
Mic is on. I can't hear myself, but they can hear me. Thanks. So in this discussion was sort of born out of some conversations that Nate and I had in the office, and then over beers, and how do we get this message to people? I said, when I talk to people, I have a certain mission that I want to get across to you, and why you will see products today. We're not here to sell you products. They're more examples of the way things can be consumed from and as a service model. If I've done my job today, I want you to push us harder. I want you to take things that aren't core to your business, whatever your business is, what's not a differentiator for your business, and actually expect that things can sort of be as a service. And if these things are new to you, don't feel bad, because the IT industry is evolving. This is the direction that the industry is going. That's where cloud comes from. And the other part is we'll talk about clouding. When you, like Nate said, when you walk into the room or you get up in the morning and you turn the water on in the shower or get a drink of water, does one part of your brain go, hope it comes on? No, you don't hope it comes on. It never happens that way. From your IT resources, you're still going, how does this work? Is it going to break today? I hate my computer. My phone keeps breaking. What we want to do, like Nate said, is elevate to that point where it's exciting insofar as it's boring. And when we talk about our infrastructure as a service, our cloud servers, and we'll get into that, as I said, the more boring we can make it for you from a consumption model, the more exciting it is to people like me. I don't want you to think about that. I don't want you to have to forecast or provision or wonder if something's out of date, because that's not your business. It's our business. Let us do what we do so you can go do what you do. It's not really a differentiator when your heat kicks on in the winter too. That's the right button. So all the time, every day, I'm trying to figure out what the word cloud means. My business card has the word cloud on it, and I think it might be one of the words I hate the most. I hate the word cloud, because if you go ask 5 people what the word cloud means, you get 8 different answers. Somebody might say that I've got a cloud in my telco closet because I'm running virtualized servers, and that might be a valid answer. I have some people, and I've been taught, I'll have a half-hour conversation with somebody about the cloud and realize to them cloud means hosted phone systems. That's what cloud can mean. I log into services and say, you can back this up to the cloud. And for a lot of people, cloud means not in my building. I'm going to make an assertion what cloud means. So at least we have from a conversation said, let's all agree what a word means. Otherwise, we could just, arose by any other name, right? So I'm going to assert that cloud is not only a noun, what the thing is, but my mission to you is I want you to take that word and make it more like a verb or an adjective, because I want you to be cloud consumers. I want you to demand things of your infrastructure, of Mytech, in turn demanding it of our infrastructure, because the reality is no matter what cloud is from the noun standpoint, it shouldn't matter to you. What should matter is that we've built a service that is answering the question you're asking. So I want you to be a tougher, smarter consumer and let that technology sort of catch up with you. This is a newer paradigm. We're used to getting out of IT what IT will give us. This server lasts for 3 or 5. This is what we've got. We just got you a new laptop last year, or that thing's only 3 years old. Suffer with it. Or if we want to put a new project together or put a new website together or a marketing campaign, you go to your IT department and say, I want to run this application. I'm running a project for 18 months. You go to your IT department, or you are the IT department, and you have to forecast it, project it out over several years, maybe buy some more hardware. Hardware's scary to buy. How long will it last? And it takes 6 months to get up and running. So your business moves as quickly as IT will let it move. I think you can stop that. I think you can push IT to be a little bit better. I want business to drive the IT department rather than the other way around. I want to see, in the epitome of all this, that the IT department is at the table with strategic decisions from the business, whether you're a 5-person shop or a 5,000-person shop, rather than it just being an expense or something you have to get around. It should be a little bit more strategic. So what does cloud mean? Cloud means what we call EaaS. You'll hear Nate use that word already, infrastructure as a service. When we talk about cloud, we're talking about what's called the public cloud, multi-tenant cloud. So those are some definitions to remember: infrastructure service, EaaS, public cloud. There's the benefits about it. So it's a new financial model. The drive right here is to try to get out of CapEx. We're making a broad assumption that OpEx is far more palatable to you than CapEx. That assumption may not always be true. I run into some customers, sometimes a lot of times with local governments, state governments, they love themselves some CapEx. Anybody in here love CapEx more than OpEx from a financial standpoint? Usually I don't get a yes to that, but some people are like, we love CapEx. We want to spend it all in 1 year because that's the way our budget works. Pay as you consume. So as you grow your business, IT should flex with you and the other way back down, and then reducing those technology and financial risks. So you put the risks back up on a provider. Agility, elastic IT, so that you can deploy, you can reduce your infrastructure and your footprint as well. If you've got a big project that comes up and you plan on, marketing departments, we got a big campaign, we need compute, front end, back end, I've got a database server, I've got web servers I'm running, and this campaign is going to run for 6 months. Not only do the marketing people want it online in an hour, I also don't want to, from a financial standpoint, be deploying capital or having to amortize it over a short amount of time. The project never gets off. If I can spin that thing back down to 6 months and quit paying for it, how wonderful is that for your business? You put that financial burden back on us. We've got a model for that. And then the third bullet point is the next generation architecture is being designed inside it. So people are not only doing things like IoT, which is Internet of Things, your appliances, your smart thermostats. That's where IoT falls in. Any service, anywhere, doing app dev that's meant to go inside of the cloud. There's also that prospect that we as an infrastructure provider are updating and adding features to that infrastructure up underneath. You're not doing those updates. You're not trying to make the hardware faster. You're not putting key features in. We're doing that up underneath, and that's always something that's free. It's like, oh, by the way, we added 6 new features this month, and you have access to them as of right now when the email goes out. You're not doing that inside of your environment. We took a survey ourselves. We sourced this out to ask why people go to essentially in the cloud or any cloud. Some of these are probably pretty obvious, but this is what CTOs and CIOs were saying was control, lower TCO. It was actually control up on the top, choice of integration equipment, and then network and IT infrastructure from that point was actually down at the bottom. So sometimes it's not what people think. They want that agility. They want their businesses to be able to move a little bit quicker. I'm going to go over this slide really, really quickly, but I want this to get into your head from a definition standpoint. There are sort of two different modes of IT. Most all of us run in what's called mode 1. It's a very static model. You deploy your servers, file servers, email. They're on 24/7. They're deployed over many years of time. They're very, very static. As we start doing things like those marketing campaigns, like developing software, those things are called mode 2. So you'll see here in the chart under mode 2, it's all about agility. It's all about small teams running in an agile development platform. Agile is an actual word, a methodology for doing deployment. It's very business centric. So we're really close to the customer. When you're developing new applications, putting new services out, I can write a new application, get it out there on the internet or to my customer, and my customer can give me feedback on that and go, yeah, I like that, but that's broken, that's broken, that's broken. Instead of having to change the infrastructure and wait for 18 months or a 2-year app development lifecycle, even a couple of months, I can go back to my dev shop, change something, put it back out on the interface in a matter of days or minutes, and go, now what do you think, customer? Now what do you think? As the internet and the Internet of Things is evolving, you're seeing a lot more mode 2 shops. There's always going to be a combination of those things. Cloud, now we've all agreed what cloud means, when a multi-tenant cloud platform feeds back into that model. In our surveys, most 45% of CIOs actually are running both mode 1 and mode 2. They've got a shop of people that are running email, which is a mode 1 kind of operation. It's up, it's running all the time, it's a long term. And almost half of them have another one where they're doing that up and down scale. If your business is going up and down, I want your IT department to be able to move with it. I'm talking fast. I'm trying to see if I can get him up here before he finishes his sandwich. I'm a horrible person. And Nate's like, he's going fast today. Trying to eat. This is sort of a wrap-up slide, and pardon me because the screen's back there. So buying and depreciating like we've been doing, it's CapEx. A lot of it's unpalatable that way. We're betting on forecasting, and I think this is a real key point. When any of us go out and buy IT infrastructure and we do a capital purchase, however we purchase it, you're going to take a couple very primary key pieces of information into consideration. I'm going to build my IT infrastructure so that it is capable of handling what I think the peak need is. Right? I'm not going to build it for what's happening at 3 a.m. on Sunday. I'm going to build it for I get a rush of people on Wednesday at lunchtime. So it has to be able to handle my peaks and more. While I'm at it, since I have to amortize this stuff out over 36 or 60 months, I need to build it out for what I think my peak will be out here in multiple years. That's a bad thing times a bad thing. In the first year of owning your hardware, deploying your IT infrastructure, and there are multiple studies to say that IT resources around the world are somewhere between about 4 and 11% utilized on average. You know who's paying for that delta beyond that? You are. You're buying stuff that's not being used. You're paying for a lawnmower in your garage and you mow your lawn once a year. You are paying for that because that's what we're used to. What I want you to do is go, I'm not going to take it anymore. You should, right? So we're not saying, please buy this from us. You should demand that from all of us to make it follow your resource. Again, that's what I'm talking about, building to anticipated needs. You're typically underutilized, and those bursts, you hope they last through amortization. You've got the step process. What happens if I've built up my infrastructure and it was way too much? I'm wasting money. What if I built up my infrastructure and it was way too little? What if I am in a seasonal business, or I get a rush on my IT infrastructure, or I do a merger and acquisition with another shop down the street or in town, and suddenly my staff just tripled? I suddenly have to build out more IT infrastructure. What if I go the back way and downscale? If you go back over on that right side, those are sort of all the answers to those problems. My other problem with building it on site is I have to have some expertise on site. Good IT people are expensive, really expensive. A lot of times I see small shops where somebody is the one-person department who's handling everything from deploying laptops to telling you, no, I don't fix copiers, and no, I don't change light bulbs. I had that job. Like, the light's out. I'm like, just because it has electricity running through it doesn't mean it's Jordan's problem. And then I'd change the light bulb because no one else would. And that's those good people. If they're good, they leave you. We hire them. That's our job. We steal those good people. Plus, they don't scale. A lot of times I see those IT departments as really the CEO's daughter's boyfriend's roommate who finally went off to college and deployed the email server. Now what do? These guys love sales calls. Like, oh, we'll take that for you. But keeping those tech advancements, those people inside your house is not easy to do. We've got experts, thousands of them. We'll get into a room and argue about the same solution so that you get the right solution. And we're doing continuous tech advancements up underneath that infrastructure. This is good for you, but it's really good for Mytech because they are putting that pressure on us to keep that infrastructure dynamic, to keep those things up to date, because they can use us as a resource, as a utility, so they can provide services to you as a utility. It goes, it's full cycle. So when they need resources from us to provide you with a solution, they aren't sitting down in a budgeting meeting and waiting for 6 weeks for us to turn up resources. These guys can log into our portal and have a Windows server up and running in 8-9 minutes. Today, we onboarded a customer, maybe you've heard of them, Starbucks. I had the Starbucks deal come along. Somebody was in a Starbucks, in line, listening to a couple of IT people complaining. There was marketing people and IT people complaining about the fact that they had a marketing campaign they wanted to get online next week, and IT was weeks out. And one of our employees said, sorry to eavesdrop, but do you need some help? We could probably have that up and running tomorrow. And so we did, and now they're our customer. It wasn't really, it just happened over here. Like, I can call the guys, right? We can log you. I have a laptop. I could have resources up and running right now. So now their marketing campaign is running just because it was just that easy. We just enabled them. Sort of last part of my little spiel, and I forgot to tell you on the reminder that this is your time, not my time. I encourage interruptions, so it's relevant to what you're doing. So raise your hand, shout, throw something. Going over some of the big players in the cloud space. Remember, we talked that cloud is infrastructure as a service, and I'm talking about multi-tenant, what we call public cloud. The reason we talk about public cloud is at that scale when it's almost like a Groupon for compute, we're saying this morning, right? It is mass buyer scale, because somehow if we're taking that financial burden, be it OpEx or CapEx, off of you, somebody has to eat that. We're eating that. That's part of our business model, because we have thousands of customers inside of that infrastructure. So if you walk away from a server, somebody else is sort of coming along. It is akin to taking the bus. When I buy a ticket to get on the bus to use public transportation, the bus that comes up to me, I have no idea where it was. I don't know the name of my driver. I don't know if that bus broke down. I don't care. And I get off at my destination. Where that bus goes afterwards, it can drive into the lake for all I care. I don't know. But that is analogous to how cloud consumption is. I pay for what I need when I need it. And if I don't ride the bus for another 2 months, not my problem. Somebody else has absorbed that cost. IT can now do that. And that's what makes you a cloud customer. Yeah, but it scares the crap out of people, doesn't it? Yes. I'm glad you brought that up. So in case with people that did. So there was feedback that the word public goes, eek, I don't want public. Everything I do is private. That was very much a reaction several years ago. That is tapering off quite a bit. In fact, I'm seeing a lot of large organizations, and my colleague's going to attest to this, that people are going to the public cloud, and that's why I use multi-tenant, because it's a softer word. They're going to the cloud because it's more secure. We have practices inside of that infrastructure. We're not just protecting you, we're protecting thousands of our customers. We can handle large-scale attacks. We know what to do with them. There's that expertise underneath. When you go to a public cloud, we'll use the word and try to soften it down, because it would scare me too. Like, this is no, not public, not eavesdropping. That is an isolated environment. When we're running a machine, or a virtual machine, or an application inside of an environment, there are security. You are not, nobody can ever commingle that data, ever. That is all isolated right down to the storage. While the storage hardware infrastructure is shared at the back end, those logical units, those hard drives that are virtual cannot talk across it. It's an extremely mature industry. Mhm. Private cloud. Yeah, so the question was, some smaller shops say, well, we have a cloud too. I have a cloud in my basement. I've got one little NAS device. Because they'll call that, I've got a little QNAP box in my, it's a cloud. So my assertion at the beginning of this presentation was, I'm going to say that cloud is multi-tenant cloud for the reasons that we've been talking about earlier, that I say cloud is a result, like all of these things are, all of us and everybody else, IBM, Amazon, are infrastructures that are serving the demand that you should be putting on us. So if we go to somebody who says, I have a cloud, in my basement or at my data center, what they're talking about is a virtualized environment where they can, on demand at some scale, spin up a virtual machine for you or not, and they may deliver a cloud-like model. Or more common is the company themselves. You can install VMware or whatever sort of hypervisor, whatever technology you want to use to virtualize your servers in your data center. You say, well, that's a cloud. And I say to you, well, no, based on what we're asserting what cloud means from a consumption model, you still had to buy all that hardware. You're still doing CapEx probably, and you're amortizing it out. It doesn't even, you've made it easier to dial your consumption up and down on your own infrastructure, but you haven't become a cloud consumer. You're still paying for it all.
Hey, John, just to add to that, the word hybrid IT kind of comes into play to address your question, right? What is hybrid IT, right? Because at the end of the day, all workloads, all those business applications critical to healthcare, right, e-commerce, are not created equal, right? So private cloud doesn't meet all of those requirements. Public cloud does not meet all of those requirements.
Yep.
So hence the word hybrid IT is so prominent now. The industry is now driven by saying, you know what, I really need to look at my workloads and my applications, not the overall infrastructure, right? Because that's critical to my business and the revenue tied to my business. So now we start talking about, and back to your question on some of the smaller players in the marketplace, some of those private clouds meet some of those criteria, mode 1, mode 2, and they do a fairly good job, right? Continuous innovation across both multi-tenant and single-tenant private cloud applications to meet all of the requirements of the customers that we engage with, small, medium, and large, is really important, right? So you just don't have one flavor. You have a box full of every flavor you can imagine, because every customer needs all the flavors.
And Mike's right. You can't, cloud isn't for every workload. We can't just say, that's dumb, go do this. This is the smart thing now. It is hybrid IT. It's a matter of the key is look at your workloads, because there's also sort of a fantasy out there. Put it all on the cloud. There are certain workloads that just don't ever belong in cloud as we've defined here from a multi-tenant public standpoint. You're going to have to hybridize. The bigger the organization, the more complex. A lot of times we've got people that are doing multi-tenant cloud. They're doing a private cloud kind of deployment. They've got private hardware. They're also doing co-location, and they've got on-prem. One customer could be spread across all of them. Pretty complex.
And so to part of Mary Jo, what the question of, why do people, some of our peers, competitors, peers, depending on how you look at it, choose to build their own cloud. So they buy this infrastructure and then they host it in a data center, and that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. There's some deliberate reasons why Mytech has chosen not to do that. And part of the reasons why is, first of all, let's look at the companies that we're talking about up here.
And there are also some logos that aren't, there's some logos that aren't on this screen. Verizon was in this business and gave up.
Why?
HP was in this business, gave up.
Exactly.
Cisco just gave up. This is hard.
To do cloud right, to do infrastructure as a service right, the amount of availability, reliability, security, redundancy, geolocation, management, like all of the stuff that you need to do and invest in to do this right, these companies are spending way more money than Mytech, or I would argue any of our competitors and peers could ever do. So instead of us choosing to take that financial risk, I'd rather companies that have a heck of a lot more revenue and income and dollars to be able to invest in this, to be able to provide a high level of service to us and to you, than to us pretend that this is our core competency and that just because we can manage servers and buy storage that we can do this. So that's why we choose to not have this part of our business, because we'd rather have all of our service team serve you and let CenturyLink, who's got thousands of people, hundreds of security experts and storage experts and all these things, make sure
and buying power too, right?
And buying
Scale
power,
the buying power
that we don't have, quite frankly. So that's, again, even though we're amongst our peers, we are one of the larger companies in the country that do this. Not the largest by any means, but amongst our peers we are larger than most, and we still don't want to make that investment because we don't feel it's the right thing for our customers. Because I want you, when you subscribe to this service or we're recommending this service, I don't ever want to worry, just like turning on the light switch, I don't ever want to worry whether or not it's going to work, because guess what? You are going to be mad at me if that breaks. I trust CenturyLink in the investment they're making. So question?
Well, then this is spanning both the physical and the virtual aspects in terms of not only security but compliance.
Indeed.
If you say, well, what about HIPAA? What about PCI compliance? If my business has a compliance need, you can request that of the data center, and these companies like CenturyLink, Amazon, Microsoft Azure, they can say, oh, well, we have a data center for that, and they just give you the data center with the staffing, physical and virtual.
Yeah, they're called business agreements. We sign them all the time where we're BAing at the back end for HIPAA. Or you may come to me and go, I want to put this workload, and you may say, I got PCI requirements. Most people I say, no, you don't, but you think you do. But some companies really do have PCI requirements, and I'll say, you can't use this kind of infrastructure. Use this one, and we have a reference architecture to make that work for you. But if we do our jobs right, this is the last time you'll ever hear of us, right? It's exciting because it's boring. These are the major players inside of the industry, same logos from before. If you look at, real quickly where the focus is for each of these companies, and I don't want to pick them because they're our partners too, but Amazon, even though they're the 800-pound gorilla of public cloud, their retail e-commerce, that's sort of the lead of their business on Amazon. They are huge. They are the biggest one. They, from a pure footprint standpoint, are probably bigger than the next 10 companies combined. We are not going to buy as much compute this year as Amazon. We don't want to. Microsoft has also gotten into the cloud business, but I will tell to you, and if somebody from Microsoft were in the room, I would say it to them, Microsoft is a licensing company. That's where they make their money, on licensing. Their cloud infrastructure is generally there to enable you to come in and buy more licenses. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's what they do. That's their primary focus. Google's an internet search company. That's why a lot of their services are free. You've seen the cartoon. If you're not paying for it, you're the product. Apple's gone through that too. Like, why do you charge for that service? Because the guys who are giving it away for free are selling your information. We're focused on being a network and IT managed services company. That's what we do. We're here to make these folks happy, to make sure that they're making you happy. Because there are things that Mytech certainly does that we can't. The endpoint stuff, we can't do it at all. Some of the fine managed services, we say we can do it. Sometimes it's harder for us. You've got the personal touch in the regions. Mytech has that differentiator inside of the environment. Towards the end of my slides, so this is something we've been using internally to talk about what our shift is. We'll talk about, because at the data center level, that horizontal line, when we're talking about cloud, that's just one part of sort of that IT stack. You talk from the OSI model, or saying that your building is at the bottom, we build up on top of it. The cloud, that's only one sort of narrow horizontal layer. There's a lot more to your IT than that. And at the cloud, at the data center, all of us, even in our public cloud and Amazon and everybody else, horizontally scales very, very well. That means if I need thousands of VMs, much more of that very same thing, we can build that out. But when Google or Microsoft or anybody has to go down the stack to talk from the building, from co-location, or further down to the base level of network, you can't buy those services from those companies. They don't do it. We do. We have a co-location business. We do manage dedicated. We even have dedicated cloud compute. We can build a cloud infrastructure that's dedicated to somebody and mix those things together. So we've decided to try to turn this thing 90 degrees and say that we're going to be a continuous delivery model up and down that stack. And we also partner as we go up, and we partner out as we go for scale. You know, those aren't really just our competitors. They are people that are also part of our infrastructure too. We partner with Microsoft. I can help deploy Azure workloads if you need to inside of your environment. But we can do up and down that entire breadth so that we can go to somebody like Mytech or you or directly, and you're not swivel chairing to go, here's my network people, and oh, I've got somebody in the data center, but somebody else is doing public cloud, but then the private infrastructure is somebody else. None of them know how to talk to each other. I'm responsible for managing that. Aren't we here today to say we want to outsource all that stuff? I want to get rid of it because it's not core to my business. It's not a differentiator to your business. No one in this room should really be getting a raise this year for how good they are at installing Windows on a server. Those days are gone. Not interested in it. You have engineer in your title, John, and how many times are you hands-on keyboard building stuff and sticking RAM in things? You're not doing it anymore. The world's changed. We all came up from that background. So that's sort of our story. Keeping it as a utility, we're at the back end. You can question me now or ask questions later at the end of this, but I'll hand it off to Nate because he's got the microphone on his lapel. Oh, all right. Here's the carrot.
If you look at the public cloud, you have updates you need to bring into the systems. How do you vet out how that's going to impact individual programs running on your?
So the question was how we do updates. So that I think your question is, there's actually two parts inside of your question. And those are sort of two answers. From a broad infrastructure level, the obvious answer, we have a test lab. We know what we're doing. We build that up from an infrastructure level. But you also said, how do we worry about that from an individual application level? I'll keep the answer really, really simple because when you consume cloud, generally, if you went straight and you were going to do cloud consumption directly with us or anybody else on the public cloud, you basically get a nice interface and you install a virtual machine, we get the operating system on it, and we say, good luck to you. If you weren't having these guys manage, good luck. That's how cloud works. It's your installation of Windows. You manage it. So from that standpoint, if you don't have someone's got to manage those patches and upgrades. So if you need to patch Windows, you need to patch Windows. If that patching process turns upside down and fails on you, that's your problem. Because we gave you the infrastructure from the operating system on up. We've left it to you unless you've elected to not do something like that. And that you haven't outsourced. You've just outsourced infrastructure as a service. There's a lot more in the world above and beyond infrastructure. That's where the compute lays off. And that's why our relationship is so great, because we're doing that compute at scale. But Mytech's doing the interesting stuff, the stuff that matters to you and matters to you, which may be the differentiator. Where you may say, I don't want that latest patch because it messes up an application I've got. They're not going to patch that because you would be very upset with them. But somebody else may say, yes, I want that patch. Why wouldn't I? And that's where the differentiators lie. So it depends upon where you outsource it.
Does that answer your question, Chip? Okay. All right. We're actually going to talk this next section, so it's almost a segue. Thank you. Because now we're talking from an infrastructure as a service perspective, now to looking at it from an application as a service perspective. So, and again, I'll ask you to think a little differently about this. And that one of the things but just to recap and a final kind of point on a couple things that Jordan mentioned is that one of the reasons, he many reasons why we chose CenturyLink as our partner in this regard. We also work with Microsoft too, but the reason why CenturyLink is because, and I'll even use Mytech as an example. So we have an office in Colorado and an office in the Twin Cities, and we have physical equipment that we own that is in a data center. It's in a CenturyLink data center. We have infrastructure as a service that we subscribe and we have certain applications on that's in their public multi-tenant cloud. And we have physical infrastructure that exists here and in Minnesota. And we have a need for our offices to be able to talk to each other and to that cloud infrastructure. We can do all of that with CenturyLink. So having that all with one provider, we actually get better performance and more bang for our buck, as opposed to, it's not that you can't do some of those things with Microsoft Azure or Amazon. There's some performance things that we'll talk about later, and there's actually data to show that. We have that slide, but we'll only show it if it comes up. But there are things that you can do with CenturyLink because of they do cover the vertical part of the stack, not just the horizontal part of the stack. That again, which is why we chose them as a partner. So I appreciate that. The last thing that I want to comment that Jordan, and you said this last time, but it resonated with several folks in the presentation in Minneapolis, is that and you did allude to it a little bit, is that when you turn on that power, you turn on that light, do you care whether or not it's hydropower, coal-driven power, nuclear power? You don't, right? You didn't think about it, right? Now you're like, oh, well, gosh, I never thought about that. But that's the whole point, is that from really when you look at, again, the applications as a service we're about to talk about and your infrastructure as a service, all you care about is that it works, right? You open your machine, you log in, you click on that application, and it works. So again, so we're going to still think a little differently about this, and I'm going to use some illustration. So how many of you use online banking? All right, everybody? On your phone, do you have the apps like a Wells Fargo or a US? I mean, I use Wells Fargo, so I have a Wells Fargo app. Do you care what server infrastructure or where it resides or where it lives, what Wells Fargo or US Bank have? Right? You don't. You just know that when you click on the app, and every once in a while, so it does happen, it said, we're doing updates or maintenance. And guess what? Sometimes on your phone, you get the automatic updates. Hey, we need to update the app, right? So I kind of get a little bit to your question of how do you update the app? So in mass and scale, they're able to do that because you don't care about the back-end infrastructure. You just care that I can click on this thing and it gets me access to my banking information. Same thing applies to Facebook or LinkedIn, right? You don't really care where it lives, right? So if you take that as a concept, now let's apply that to some of the things that we use in our business on a regular basis, even though you might use some of those things in your business too. Let's look at, Word and Excel and PowerPoint, right? We can talk about Exchange, email, and SharePoint, right? These are things that you're probably using for sure. Word and Excel. Everyone, Word and Excel. Everyone, yeah, okay, figured. Not everyone uses SharePoint. Everyone's using email usually, some sort of Exchange service, as well as less used as Publisher and Access. And does anyone use Skype? Yeah, Skype. Anyone? So no, some of us, good. Skype, one of the things I love about Skype, and this is an illustration of what applications as a service can do, is one, not only do I not care of the back-end infrastructure that runs Skype, but it's a utility that now that if we use it, and if you use it, and CenturyLink uses it, and some of our partners, I know Dell and SonicWall partners that we have use it, now I can actually collaborate with the same tool, not only inside of our organization, because we all use it, so we can do that, but also outside of our organization as well. So I can actually see once, and again, you have to kind of authorize someone to be able to have visibility to this, but for our partners that I have, like I said, Dell or CenturyLink or even internally, I can actually see through Skype if they're online, if they're in a meeting. I can. I was on a call with actually I was on a call with Microsoft yesterday talking about licensing because they're a licensing company, and I was talking to my primary contact, and they were able to, because of the conversation we were using on a Skype call, and because the conversation took a turn and like, oh, that's somebody else that we don't have on this call, my rep was able to see this is the right resource, they're available, I'm going to add them to the call, and all of a sudden this person was added to the call, and now 4 of us were on the conversation instantaneously. It's just, again, from the standpoint of the way it works, it's just kind of a way to, and that was, instead of saying, gosh, you know what, the right person's on the call, I'm not sure what their calendar is, whether or not they're available, we're going to have to reschedule this call. They were able to join them on really quick, and we were able to have the conversation in 5 minutes. So just from a productivity perspective, it saved me a lot of time, which I really appreciated. So think about that as far as how these services is you don't really care where they run, but that all the things about availability and reliability come into play. So anyone remember these days? Right? Do you still get many times? You're probably not getting these much anymore, CDs or DVDs, right? And I think actually, if I zoomed in, when I found the image, it was I think that was Office 2003, actually, back in the day. So that was some Office 2003 image CD of DVD. This is 2007. You remember there's a small business edition, and you remember these plastic cases you used to get, right? And then now you've got you still can get the boxes if you want, but who likes managing that stuff, right? Trying to track down those CDs or those boxes or those SKUs, it's actually really kind of painful, right? And Microsoft is doing. I mean, anyone here gotten hit from Microsoft audit? Yeah, you did. Okay, so like this is why, because it's painful. It's funny, they make it painful, but then they're going to audit you because it's painful, and then and then it costs you time and money to try and figure it all out. So part of this concept as well is the application as a service model takes all that stuff away, right? Quite frankly, it's less of a headache for us, and which translates to less of a headache for you as well. And so that's kind of where the world is going. And the reason why we brought this content together today is because the world is going in this direction. Infrastructure as a service is leading the way. Office 365 and applications as a service is leading the way. Other stuff is going there too. So let's be at least having the dialogue. Kind of, I think two of you mentioned, I've got stuff coming up. I'm not sure if this is the right answer. I'm just educating. Let's start having the dialogue is really what we're trying to do, right? Okay, so I look at Office 365 as kind of the easy button for Office because not only do those managing all those licenses and those disks or those boxes is it difficult, but usually you bought this box and it only worked on the one thing. Well, how many, I see smartphones on everybody's table right now, and you have a laptop, sometimes a desktop, maybe a remote access server that you're accessing this stuff on. Well, people have multiple devices today, so through O365, the easy button, so to speak, you can deploy it on up to 5 different devices. And Chip, to your question around how do you update the applications, well, they automatically keep the application up to date. You are always on the current version. You don't have to think about it, right? So you can share it across multiple different devices where you have Android, Mac, PC, laptops, desktops, tablets, a home machine, right? Because that's the other thing. When people, if they have a home machine that they work off of, you have different versions of Office, that's painful. You can use it offline or online. I was hoping that was the next bullet. I didn't see that in front of me, but so you can actually use it in a web browser if you need to. So let's say you're at a different machine, you can log in as yourself, and you can use it in a web browser without having the application downloaded if it's not your device from which you're connecting. It's really rare that that happens anymore, but there used to be internet kiosks, if you remember, at coffee shops and things like that. Well, that's something you could have done, right? So it's nice that you can do it offline or online, up to 5 different devices as we touched about, and you know, and edit via the browser. So it really, we're seeing a lot of our customers move in this direction, and what's also really nice is you don't have to do it all at the same time, right? So if you're just adding a new employee, instead of buying one of those disks or those boxes, you can just, through Office 365, subscribe to Office. And then as maybe this next person's PC comes up for replacement and you're looking at getting a new version, you can get them a new machine if that's where you're going, and then you can add them to your subscription. It makes it really easy to start managing that moving forward, and you don't have to worry about tracking and auditing and having a capital expense around the Office license when part of the value of this is keeping everything current and up to date in the same band or threshold. Okay, so one of the things I like to show as an illustration of why other benefits do you get from subscribing to something like Office 365. And again, I'm not actually trying to say that it's the right fit for everybody in the room. I'm not. I'm just using it as an illustration of a very common application as a service tool that does apply to a lot of people. But what are you getting on the back end? So you're subscribing to Exchange Online, or you're subscribing to Skype, or just to any of those other services that are out there, your Office licensing. This is the last 8 quarters, with exception of Q4 of 2016, of the availability and uptime that Office 365 brought to the table. Over 99.9%. Now that's still a little downtime, so IT is not perfect, so I'm not setting that expectation, I hope. But the point is that they invest in infrastructure and updates, security, and reliability across like millions of dollars of infrastructure. It's more than any of us are all going to spend on IT probably ever combined, to be able to give this to you, and all you have to do is subscribe that you want email, or I want Skype, or I want to use my Office licensing, right? So part of the value of that dollar amount that you're paying, because if you actually, and in fact, it's cheaper than buying it yourself. So if you bought an Office license versus subscribing, or buying an Exchange server and installing it and running it, managing it, backing it up, and doing the security on it, it's more expensive for you to do that, and you would not have this guarantee. Does that make sense? Is that sinking in? So I'm trying to just correlate that part of application as a service is that, yes, you're buying the license on a monthly basis, but you're paying for 99.9% or more availability and uptime that you don't have to worry about. You don't even have to pay us to do it, right? If you're our customer, you don't even have to pay us to do that. Microsoft's handling that. Similarly, CenturyLink is handling that from the infrastructure as a service perspective, right? By subscribing to their service and paying for what you could buy it or pay as infrastructure as a service, the dollars are usually about the same or a wash over time. But you get a lot more when you're subscribing to it on an as-a-service basis, because they take care of all that stuff behind the scenes that you might get lucky and not have to do it, but if you had to do it yourself, Alex, to your point earlier on compliance, if you had to deal with all the compliance and security that they do on the back end, that would cost you a lot more money to do it yourself. So that's part of the value of application as a service. So hence the security and compliance. All this stuff is built in, right? They're doing all this stuff on the back end for you. How many of you, so I know some of you are in the medical world, so you're subject to HIPAA, right? Do you think that you're spending more money on security and compliance on your infrastructure, or is CenturyLink? They probably are, right? I mean, so just a little more, right? Because so they have experts that all they do is worry about the security and compliance, right? And so part of the confidence you can have from just subscribing is that you get that on the back end, right? Office does the same thing. Actually, there's a video that I'll show that'll talk about that a little bit. So they're continually improving because they have to, right? And it's something that is a pain for us to think about and do, right? We all are concerned about security. We all are concerned about compliance, and we want to be compliant. But it's a lot harder for us to do and pay for than what they can do, or Microsoft can do, or CenturyLink can do at scale, right? So that's it's the easy button for compliance to some regard as well. Now, granted, I understand that compliance doesn't just mean your server infrastructure. It's your people, it's your training, it's your processes, your documentation. That still exists, but they take at least a piece of it away, right? Okay, so, and then, and as Jordan mentioned earlier, that it's privacy is built by design. They would not even be able to offer this solution if they weren't able to have the security and privacy built into it. And again, I know one of the reasons why Mytech is not building this ourselves is because they spend a lot more time and effort and money on solving those problems than we ever could. So I have great confidence that doesn't mean it's perfect. So I'm not saying that it's 100% perfect, because no security is.
They can fire us at any time.
Right, that too. Right.
There's a competitive marketplace. They can say, I'm going to you jokers and move all of your stuff from us. You never know. So we have to keep impressing Mytech.
So that's part of their obligation, and being able to, again, take your data when you want. So now I'm going to break away from the slide and show a brief video that will illustrate some of the things that Microsoft, in particular Microsoft Office 365 is doing relative to security and compliance. And I think the sound.
When thinking about a cloud service and what does it take to have trust, it's about understanding and having control and visibility into your information. And as I've talked to customers over the years about this, I've found there's a set of key expectations that they have around things like who owns your data, and how do you have access and control around that to feel confident. And then even things like the whole life cycle of what if you choose to leave the service?
Core engineering principle for us is that it's your data. We process it on your behalf. We enable things like search, anywhere access and devices, but you control it, you own it. We process it on your behalf. And you'll be able to take your data out of Office 365 whenever you want, and you'll be able to take it out with full fidelity of the data.
Beyond expectations, there's also, I get a lot of questions around security and privacy because you own your data. It's really important that you understand what our security and privacy policies are.
Above and beyond physical security, we invest in a lot of logical enforcement of security. Encryption at rest, encryption in transit. We have strict controls around access to your data, but then we back it up with validation. We put our best engineers in penetration testing. We ask neutral third parties to do the same on our behalf. But a very important dimension is around user empowerment. We believe that the best way to secure your data is to empower your end users to be able to comply with your business rules.
On the topic of privacy, certainly have a lot of conversations, and the first thing is around, is my data being used for any other purposes? And no one should have to worry about that. We are not using your data for anything other than running your business, and certainly not for advertising. And the other topic around privacy is, how do you feel great about making sure you have control? And what about third-party access without your permissions? And certainly something in light of the NSA revelations, a lot of conversations I have on that area.
Microsoft engineers don't have access to your data. We don't give any third-party access to your data. Engineering does not build any backdoors into your data. We have very strict boundaries around your data flow. And some of the most rigorous compliance standards around criminal justice data handling, healthcare data handling, we meet those certifications because of the rigorous implementation of data access controls that we have in Office 365.
Now, as a massive global service, of course you expect us to be running, and meeting all the big requirements like ISO and have those things independently verified. But then it really comes back to, what about the compliance requirements that matter to you, very specifically to your industry, and how do we run this big global service yet still meet your unique needs?
The core asset that we've built in pursuing these compliance requirements is a control set that exceeds over 900. And it's a control set that's living and breathing and stuff that we very rigorously monitor and enforce. And what that has given us is also the agility to respond to your needs, to your emerging needs and compliance. So it's something that we refer to as continual compliance and continual monitoring. And then we think the other part of compliance is to give you the capabilities to enforce the requirements that you have. Capabilities like e-discovery, archival, records management are built in deeply into Office 365 user experiences and IT controls.
The other questions I get around expectations of being a very highly available service, and then also understanding what you do in the case of maybe there's an issue, and who do you call?
Reliability is a fundamental promise. Our SLA is 99.9%, but we don't think our job's done. We want to continue to push the envelope on reliability so that it covers every scenario that you care about. And when there is an issue, we want to be transparent. We want to notify you about the issue. We want to give you full details of the issue is unfolding. And then on the conclusion of the incident, we want to share with you our exhaustive, rigorous post-mortem process. And in terms of reaching us, we are available 24/7, 365. Our engineers are 24/7, 365. We understand that Office 365 is a mission-critical workload for you.
A key aspect of running the global service is also listening to you and taking your feedback and putting it right back in the service quickly. And thanks to our new engineering cloud-first model, we can do that.
Cloud-first means our engineers are now directly accountable for the quality of the service. Cloud-first has enabled our engineering team to be much more agile in terms of the innovation that we are able to release into the service for you. The cloud has enabled a rapid feedback loop between you, your users, the usage, and into our engineering team.
And it's also about expanding the offering. Where we had just had email about a decade ago, now we've added things that you've asked us for, like unified communications and enterprise social and even the familiar Office desktop experience into the cloud service.
We want you to have the peace of mind that with Office 365, you have a compliant solution, a solution that also enables your end users to be productive.
And at the end of the day, that's about trust. And every day, listening to you and earning your trust.
So again, it wasn't the video wasn't necessarily to be a Office 365 advertisement. It was more to talk about how if you're a small business and if you're just subscribing to Exchange Online, for example, you might be paying, let's say it's it's $4 per user per month. So let's say you're paying $100 a month. You're getting that entire compliance, security, 24/7 service monitoring, constant updating and evaluation and improvement. You're getting that for that $100 a month. And so that's part of the value that the IT and the direction of IT is going, and that's the concept that we're trying to make sure, again, we have the dialogue around as far as how this type of thing, and we even have other customers I know in the medical space, in the nonprofit space, where they're subscribing to other line of business applications as a service where all this is taken care of as well, right? And that's part of the value of it. Okay, so the last piece, and this will go quickly, but here's where some of the challenges and why we're bringing this concept together today. So is that now we've gotten infrastructure as a service, we've got applications as a service. Well, what about all the other stuff? What about your laptops, your desktops, your firewalls, your switches, all the other things that you need to buy? Well, they also have a finite life. And one of the things that, and we're really, again, talking about employee productivity, right? So part of this I think about today's challenges. How do we take IT and give you what you really want? And so, and I just have a quick question just to validate a piece of information that I'm assuming, but I want to make sure I validate it. So how many in here, your most expensive, your most significant cost is people? Payroll is your number one cost, right? Right? Yes. Okay, good. So we got to validate it. So IT's promise is to enable your people to be more productive. And so subscribing to things like infrastructure and service and Office 365 applications as a service enables your people to be 99.9+% productive using those tools. So how do we make sure that we try and get that same productivity and reliability down to the other devices that they have to use, like your laptops, desktops, switches, firewalls, all those other things, that if those go down, it doesn't matter if Office 365 has 99.9% availability, you're not going to be able to access them and use them, right? So that's part of the concept today. Think a little bit differently about it. Again, this is where the direction the industry is going. And it doesn't mean that tomorrow you need to go this direction. It's just to think about it and have the dialogue around it, right? So part of the things that I'll just touch on from a hybrid or CapEx cloud plus Office, again, it's the same things that Jordan talked about. Infrastructure is always refreshed. Office applications are always current. You don't have to worry about compatibility issues between different versions. You get more and more integration between your line of business application and the templates that go into a Word document or Excel document. You don't have to worry about incompatibility or problems with that. I've seen that happen plenty of times when you're not keeping that stuff current. But the problem is when you do everything else, you get varying ages of equipment. You're probably not managing it as well and keeping it in, and support costs go up, and productivity costs to you go up. Or productivity downtime, which means more cost to you, goes up over time. So how do we work on that uptime? So I'll give you a couple examples. We actually did some research. This is a slide that we pulled out of our webinar that we did actually last week. Is that there was a study done that the average cost on upgrades and repairs for machines that are over 4 years old is $561, which is again, and we actually did this research because we wanted to be able to find out where's that inflection point of when new equipment versus the cost of maintaining it changes. And based on the data and the studies that we found, and some of this data is it's around the 4-year mark where the support cost and the upgrade cost and the productivity losses significantly goes up around the 4-year mark. So the cost of downtime, the average cost of downtime for a person if a PC or laptop fails is 42 hours. After the 4-year mark, and that's annually, by the way. So this is an annual kind of expense. Interesting data. So taking that same data, and this was a study done by Tech of over 700 businesses, that the average cost of a PC from a support, maintenance, and cost of downtime after 4 years is $1,400 a year. And that's, again, using their data. But in the same time, that study said 47% of businesses said that they don't replace it because of lack of budget. So the challenge is that it's already costing you $1,400 a year. And if you bought a laptop recently or a desktop recently, that's usually in that ballpark or less, right? Plus you're enabling your team to do more work and be more productive, which is really what it's all about, because that's more expensive than all of it, right? So that's just some of the financial analysis we did around, again, the idea is it's enabling productivity. It's not about, and how can we take everything else that has this 99.9% availability and try and translate it to everything else that your team uses to keep your team working. This slide, while it's not about necessarily replacing equipment, one of the things that since we're talking about employee productivity, is the performance differences of dual versus single monitors. There was a Dell study done that if you go from a single 17-inch monitor, which not many people probably have a 17-inch monitor anymore, but if you went from a single 17-inch monitor to dual 19-inch monitors, that gives you an extra 56 days of work per year per employee. I don't know about you, but the cost of a 19-inch monitor isn't much. That's a 61 return on investment annually of buying an extra monitor. Now, when you look at going to dual 22-inch monitors, which I thought this was interesting, that it's not just about dual monitors, but the size of the monitor, it actually gets you an extra 10 days beyond the other. So 66 extra days of work just by having dual monitors and just having a little bit larger screen, which is technically a little less ROI because a 22-inch monitor costs just a little more using the same productivity model. But
so the moral of the story is 17-inch monitors are cool and unusual functions.
That's right, especially if you only have one of them, right?
How dare you give me a 17-inch monitor?
So the reason why we mention this stuff, because it's not part of the analysis that we are trying to do on your behalf, is to look at trying to find the balance. And it is a line, because budget is always a concern for every organization, is there's a line of enabling productivity at the maximum, like maximum productivity at the best cost. It doesn't mean the cheapest cost, but at the best cost. So it doesn't mean I'm saying, well, I can get you a really powerful machine for $3,000, but those are going to be resources that your team's not going to use because they don't need all of that. They're not a CAD designer necessarily doing 3D rendering. They're just doing office programs and accounting programs and line of business applications. But finding that right balance is what we try and do and invest in behind the scenes in bringing these solutions to you. So here's a reference, and I'd be happy to share that study with you if you'd like to have some sleepy time reading. So again, IT is utility, thinking about that. I mean, you're already paying for these things. You don't really care where it comes from. And then I want to compare now, so let's see if we can look at making everything as a service, right? Because the value of it is going to be more employee productivity enabling if we manage that effectively and together. And it takes it together, right? And then finally, from a zero CapEx IT roadmap, these are things that you're already paying for on a service level basis. Anyone buy their internet connection?
Bury your own fiber.
Yeah, bury your own fiber. Are you doing that? Like, are you plumbing your water pipes to you? Right? No, you don't. Right? You pay for those things as a service. You're already paying for backup and disaster recovery as a service. If you're a customer of ours, you're already paying for monitoring and AV and patching, backup licensing, offsite storage for your backup. All of that is already being paid for as a service because it's easier to be consumed in that way. So what about everything else? Right? Again, it's all these other points that what we want to try and do, and again, I'm not saying that you should necessarily tomorrow convert everything to as a service for all this other stuff, but think about it in a way that part of the reason why these things, the other components, the infrastructure as a service, the applications as a service, internet connections, why do you pay for them on a monthly basis, is because people that are responsible for that are doing all of the work behind the scenes to make it work for you. And part of that is they're upgrading it, they're keeping it current, on the same most current versions, and so we want to try and do that for everything else because that is what's going to enable your team to be productive. Whether you buy it up front because you're already doing that today, or whether you build it into some sort of monthly payment over time, it doesn't really matter to us a whole heck of a lot. We're just trying to get the concept of is as a service that keeping everything current and updated is what enables us to enable your team to be as productive as they possibly can be. So we actually bought this Make IT Easy. Forgive me for being a little punny in the IT industry, is everything as a service. Yeah, I know, it's nerd. So we're actually working with our peer group. We're actually submitting it as a contest to really get awareness out there around Make IT Easy. We actually bought makeiteasy.com, just points to our website today, but really trying to make IT easy. It's the easy button, right? It's the things that we really want to do because it's not your core, like you said, Jordan, it's not your core business. And it's not a differentiator, right? It's just we want to enable your team. So with that said, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate your time. And any questions before we kind of adjourn that you'd like to ask with your group? Yes, sir.
What about things like domain controlling Active Directory? For those, I had a conversation with the past Mytech rep about a year ago. Who said that those weren't really good to go as far as cloud services.
So there depends. So it depends on that, right? And some of it is, so for instance, one of the reasons why so the question, just for the sake of the recording, was about Active Directory and domain services. I'll use Mytech as an example. So we actually have a domain controller in the cloud, but because of performance reasons, we actually have a file server and an Active Directory server in Denver and in Minnesota. So that way that me as a user, when I'm logging in, I have fast login times, fast access to files rather than traversing the cloud. Now some of it depends on my ability to pay for a fast internet connection, right? So we have a good connection, but we're also an IT company, so we actually built that out locally. So some of it depends on the situation, right? And being able to have connectivity to that Active Directory. But one of the things that I really like about, again, where technology is going is those services like Office 365 and some others, but Office 365 for sure, integrates with that so that your login for if you're using the local file serving and logging into your machine, whether subscribing to and logging into your email or SharePoint or Skype, can all be tied together through Active Directory. So Active Directory is absolutely key to this whole thing, and it depends on your unique situation as far as whether or not putting it in the cloud is the right thing for you, or having it in the cloud only, and having, and maybe having a local version of it, depending on your workforce and where your people need to access information. So, but it definitely can go into the cloud. There are some limitations, like Azure actually has some. Historically, they've had some limitations if you need to access it from multiple spots. It's technical. I wouldn't be able to articulate it, but there used to be a problem if you had multiple locations. Azure wasn't the right fit for you from an Active Directory perspective because you had to route it all to one location and into the cloud, which
in the cloud, two-way trusts and Active Directory are somewhere between impossible and please don't try because it's nearly impossible.
Yeah, yeah. But that's part of our job and one of the reasons why we chose CenturyLink. And in fact, but Azure Azure has made some of those changes. So if someone's just subscribing to Active Directory, Azure might be the best fit for you. Like kind of Jordan was saying, CenturyLink's not always the right fit for every function. Cloud's not always the right fit for every function. A lot of it depends on your unique.
And we do a lot of work. We manage a lot of Active Directory.
Yeah.
And we do one-way trusts on-prem, and we'll do full AD management for people. So that's part of a service too. And we work with partners like this where it can be, bimodal that way as well.
Any other thoughts, questions? Sure.
So everything as a service outside of EaaS and EaaS, we're looking at everything else, wireless access,
Right. Yeah.
desktop, whatever endpoint. In reality, how does that actually work? Is it really just a lease, or is it a new unique type of program?
So the question is everything as a service just as simple as a lease, or is there some other thing going on? Today, I would say that it's we actually have collaborated with a financial partner. In fact, it's integrated even to our quoting services, where it actually can say, do a quick check and say, all right, based on this proposal, based on the hardware and services mix and all that kind of stuff, we can actually present CapEx and OpEx as an option. That's through a third. We're not a bank, right? So it's through that. The two options are typically looking at a couple different ways, either like a formal lease like you're used to, dollar buyout kind of situation, or like a rental. Hardware is a rental, so it's almost like a fair market value. So it is really looking at it from a lease perspective. But the idea and what we were collaborating with, and we were able to get very competitive rates from them that are comparable to what you'd get from your bank, which is where historically technology leasing has been challenged. Is that the leasing rates have been 2 to 3x sometimes what you could get from your local bank if you had a good relationship with them. But we're able to, on the rental side, because if you're really looking to replace your equipment every 4 years anyway, the lowest possible way to buy that would be on a fair market value kind of program, which we're able to get the most favorable rates from our provider. So it is a collaboration on the back end. So for this presentation today, we worked with CenturyLink and Microsoft and our financial partner to kind of put all this stuff together as far as, and even our quoting partner and the services that we use there to be able to deliver that. But it's not to the point yet of where like infrastructure as a service is, where like I have 10 laptops and then now I add 2 employees for a project and I get 2 more laptops for a few months and then those 2 employees go away, so I'm giving those laptops back. Infrastructure as service, you can do that. We're not quite there yet on the everything else as a service, so to speak. Yeah, right.
Well, and there's that value too, like even from the lease statement, I've seen the terms that they're coming up with, like, why wouldn't you lease this? Because again, you go back to what's core for your business. Is collecting old computers core to your business? Like, I want to keep it. Why? Just it's a tool, and like you've already shown that after about 3 years, the value of that tool to your employee starts to just drop off a cliff.
Yeah.
Get rid of it, give them a new laptop, and move on with your day. And so not only is it just straight up from the financial standpoint, I was looking, again, better lease rates. There's cost of money too. You're like, well, I'll just go get a loan and do a capital expense. You've got cost of money, and there's that other thing which I have to keep reminding myself too, is time. Do you want to mess with this stuff, or do you want to just say, do you want to just IT to exist and enable all of your expensive staff to just go do their jobs? I mean, sometimes it's like I have to tell people, like, well, how much are you spending messing around with silly things for the sake of messing around with? Like, stop messing with old hardware and squeezing every penny out of your servers and your laptops some weird hobby. do that in your garage. You know, if you collect old cars and want to work on them, that's one thing, but don't treat your core business infrastructure that. You don't do it with other things. You don't mess with the drinking fountain or the copiers. Stop it. It's 2017. Cut it out. You know, the lease rates are so favorable now. You know, even 5 years ago, you're like, maybe. I think what they're doing is taking that pain away from you. I mean, it's not just a cost reduction right there on front. It's a cost reduction in time. You know, and I can even, along that lines, when we go to infrastructure as a service, you know, multi-tenant cloud, the reason I want people to be a cloud customer is I wind up with a lot of folks, and I support a sales staff, and they say, hey, you know, they'll call me and go, I got this customer, and they want to go to the cloud. And I'm like, cool, why? Well, you know, Carl, their IT guy left, and their hardware is aging out. They want to go to the cloud. I said, that's not a cloud customer. That's a customer who's good for outsourcing, which is fine. It's great. You're getting infrastructure out of your basement. But if you just do what we call your mess for less, if you just say, I'm going to take all of my stuff, throw it away, and put it in the cloud, and you don't take advantage of, you know, where I talked about building it out for your max peaks over, if you just go, well, this box is a 6-core, 16 gig of RAM machine, I'm going to build it the same way in the cloud. Then not only will you not say you're not taking advantage of what the cloud's supposed to be, and that really is the message, you're also wasting, you might wind up costing more, because at a certain scale, just steady state might be cheaper in something that's dedicated. But if you go to the cloud and you deploy it at the minimum of what you need, and when there's a burst, you can scale up immediately, maybe on a daily basis, or for a lot of our retail customers, Q4 is what it's all about. We also, one of our big customers is, you know, one of the big greeting card companies. They use the heck out of us on Mother's Day. I mean, and their business goes through the roof on certain days of the year, and during August, there's not much going on. They've taken all of that wasted IT resource, which is wasted money, and made it our problem. This isn't a pitch to IT people. This is a pitch to business people. Stop paying for things you're not using. And that's where that mass scale comes in. And that's where we're trying to take our customers. So push us to do that for you.
So we look forward to having the dialogue with you and understanding how it applies to your organization. And like I said, it's not a one-size-fits-all. There's definitely unique business requirements everybody has. It's just trying to get the concept out there, start thinking differently about IT. This is where the industry is going. So if you're forecasting out years into the future as far as you're planning for your business, these are some things that are not going away. This is not a fad like the internet. It's not a fad. It's here to stay. And these services, there's just going to be more and more of this happening. So we're happy to partner with you, and thanks for coming here today. So thanks a lot, everybody.